Hello and welcome to Marlin the Elite, the movie, the official commentary. I am the director of this movie, Lane Thomas.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Kevin.
So we are here to give you all these behind the scenes, little tidbits about the movie and insight of how it was made.
So we start things off with the brand new Thomas Productions logo, and the font at the bottom took a while for, to get right.
It was a group decision in terms of what font we wanted to be right.
Okay, just look at this opening shot. We had this in mind for a long time. Exactly what we wanted to do. We're picturing you see a volcano that's spewing lava, and then it shakes. The camera shakes a little bit, and then you see this vehicle fly past.
And we did it a really interesting way. I was the one piloting the Falcon, and what we did was Lane knew where he wanted to put the camera. So in Forge, we placed a little piece of geometry there, so that I knew as soon as I passed over that when to start moving upwards. It's the only shot that we filmed where we knew where the camera was, where we could actually see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we had this great idea to start the movie off with an action sequence that you don't really know what's going on, but you get that this is Marlin. And then it turns out to be a movie, not just any movie, but the movie that was referenced at the end of episode 100.
Yeah, I think that's a great kind of lead-in to it. And it definitely comes into play later on in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is a movie that you really benefit from watching it twice. If you go back and watch this scene after seeing the movie, then you'll think, wow, this is kind of the end big battle happening in the movie, foreshadowing, but you wouldn't think about that while watching it.
That's right. It's Marlin rescuing two people
mm-hmm.
who are held captive.
Yeah, and there's even more similarities in terms of like the lines that are used.
Yeah.
Like where he ends it by saying like, I'm Marlin the Elite. The sticky grenade he uses to kill a guy, which obviously echoes Corey at the end.
He's got a sword.
So it definitely is meant to reflect where here it's all fake and, Marlin's or Lemon Man's parents think, this is macho and Marlin definitely isn't that macho. But in the end, he definitely has the willpower to do all these things.
So this is a fun moment right here. What we were thinking of doing was placing an actual turret on the back of a warthog so that we can explode the warthog and he can jump off or rip off the turret. Mm-hmm. We kind of edited it differently than we had, planned, but it still ends up working well.
So like most movies, we didn't film it in order, but this was the very first thing that we filmed because this was an idea that we had that was all planned out, and we were still sort of planning out the rest of the movie. I mean, we did have a whole scene list and everything, but there were some questions that we had whether we were going to have an extra scene with Marlin and Corey bonding a little bit. Mm-hmm. But this was one that we were able to do right off the bat because we knew exactly what we wanted to happen and we knew how we wanted it to reflect the ending of the movie. And this is actually a practical set, and what that means is the outside and the inside are the same. It's the same when you fly into the volcano, and you can see it, and when Marlin drops in, that it's the same set.
And it's a good thing in terms of like at that one shot you have the camera flying into it with Marlin, so you can do stuff like that. But it's also bad, as we found out, because on the outside of the volcano, we have a bunch of explosions and fusion coils going off.
Just a moment. There's the Kyle helm, the scream that I recorded years ago, and it's been in lots of Marlin episodes, and we put it in the movie as well.
Yeah,
okay, go
prominent space for that. So, all throughout this whole scene, while we filmed it in-game, we constantly had these fusion coils going off. So, pretty much all the audio from this scene was entirely unusable. So, while everything in the movie audio-wise has been touched, this is the one scene of the movie where everything you hear audio-wise was added later on in post.
Yeah, so Lane had to do all this hard work, I'm sure, of, recording or finding audio of the weapons and like match it up perfectly.
Now here's an interesting thing. This is actually one of the very last things that we filmed. We did the opening scene, filmed the whole rest.
Day one.
Yeah, filmed the whole rest of the movie, and then when we were done with principal photography, we had some fans come in and help us film that.
Everyone was super, super cooperative and a pleasure to direct and work with.
Big
So
thank you to everyone who came out and helped us with that.
I hope.
This is good.
Oh yeah, hope you enjoy your credits at the end of the movie.
Yeah, this is one of 3 scenes I believe that we did with them, right?
I think that's correct.
Yeah, so we had them in the movie theater, and then they, well, we'll talk about it when we get there, but they showed up in the bar scene, and then as well as the final battle as some extras.
Now, that theater scene with them, all in the theater.
Look, we did it.
We did have, a bunch of people come out, but we did want to fill it up a little bit more. So, actually, there is some camera trickery in there. Some garbage mats were used to add some more people into the shots. And
Lane, what does that mean?
that pretty much means like we filmed it multiple times. I think
We put people in different places within the
shot.
theater.
And
yeah.
we even filmed it just the 3 of us by ourselves with Marlin, Lemon Man, and Cotton Swab in the movie theater, right?
Yes, and that's because obviously over Xbox Live you can't have weapons lowered in Halo Reach. Thankfully they fixed that with subsequent Halo games, but in this game that's not possible. So for that close-up shot in the theater where they have their weapons lowered, that was something that we had to do locally. And because obviously locally you're only allowed 4 players, we had to go in and add people into that shot, like behind the 3 of them and on the sides. And a lot of these special effects things that I'm talking about, you'll see in a subsequent visual effects video that will be put out.
I think this is an interesting scene here because all of these characters are voiced by me, so I'm acting against myself. And I have to say, I think I did a great job, especially with Lemon Man. I really like Lemon Man's dialogue delivery in this scene.
Yeah, we each played one female character in the movie. I, of course, played Grandma, Marlin's grandma. Kevin played Lemon Man's mom, and then Lane played
Oprah.
Marlin's
Yeah,
mom.
I guess it's kind of a thing where I guess the parents of the character have to be played by the person who voices the character.
But the grandparents are off limits.
Yeah.
So this was actually a brand new addition to Lemon Man's house that we forged just for the movie.
Yeah, the current state of his house was not, it wasn't going to work for this scene, so we had to make a little addition where we could place a table so that we could have an area where they could all sit and eat dinner. Because when we first got Halo Reach and we made this map of where all their houses were going to be, we each made our own house. And I can't tell you why, but for some reason I made Lemon Man's house ridiculously, there's no rooms in it. It's
Not exactly practical.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So we added this area that makes it work a little bit more.
Another change was made to Lemon Man as well.
Yeah, if you notice, he has a gold visor now. And there's no real reason for that other than just blinging him out for the movie.
A lot of the things about this movie is logistics-wise, because there's 4 controllers that we can have to film this. There's only 3 of us, and for I'd say like a good 80% of the movie, besides the stuff that we did for the fans, that's how we filmed this whole thing.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of juggling, because with Halo Reach you have to progress and get certain achievements or get so far so that you have enough credits to buy certain armor pieces. So a lot of it is juggling around in terms of, okay, this account has like this gold visor, so this account can be Lemon Man, but this other account can't because it doesn't have the right armor piece.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff like that had to go into some of these scenes.
It's real. I mean, we did that kind of stuff on the show too,
Yeah.
but even more so for the movie. You know, we worked really hard on making sure that everything is going to work out perfectly. There's so much work went into this movie on all stages of it.
Speaking of more work, we did add, in addition to adding in the table, we went in and added some extra lights to this. I know, like that yellow light.
Yeah, but we didn't just do that here. We did it on almost all the sets, or a lot of them have lights placed around that you're not supposed to see, more like how you would on a real movie. We treated this movie not like an animated movie or whatever, but more like a live action movie. So we built sets. Some of them are practical, some of them are not. We put lights on them, and just tried to make it, feel as much like a real production as possible, because in a way it was a real production.
And hopefully that helps explain why it took us 2 years to make the movie. When we made the announcement video, we were planning on putting this out in 2016.
I think the movie kind of grew. It wasn't supposed to be a feature-length movie.
We were thinking like half hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I told Kyle last night.
So this scene, obviously, this is where we kind of reveal kind of what the movie is going to be about. And this whole scene leading up to this moment was kind of played like almost like a verbal barrage at Marlin. You got a nice bit of silence there where you kind of get to rest, where Marlin has to like come up with an excuse to leave.
While we're talking about the story, can we just say that during the making of this movie, the Finding Dory came out, which was a very similar story of trying to find your parents. We had this idea long before Dory was even announced. In fact, years and years and years ago, and we talk about this in the making of documentary that I made, is that we always knew that if we made a movie, it was going to be about Marlin finding his parents. There was never any question of, if we're going to do a movie, what would it be about? We had always kind of said, if we ever want to do a story of Marlin finding his parents, it's going to be a movie.
Mm-hmm. I still haven't seen Finding Dory. And I purposely didn't want to see it once I heard that it was kind of similar to this, so that any similarities would be purely coincidental.
I also think it's kind of similar if you've seen Star Wars The Force Awakens, that at the very beginning of the movie they say Luke is gone. The whole movie they're trying to find him, at the very end he shows up. That's kind of similar to this. That in the beginning we introduce Marlin's parents exist, and he tries to find them, and then they show up.
We started working on this movie before The Force Awakens came out. And I think, Lane is such a huge fan of Star Wars. We all are. And so we, kind of wanted it to feel like a Star Wars movie, but there's Star Wars influences, and I think I get a similar feeling from watching this movie that I do when watching Star Wars.
That is a really high compliment for me.
I understand that, but I think a lot of it is subconscious. I think your directing and editing style is influenced by Star Wars, and then there are some times when it is conscious, like the transition wipes. That's just a pure reference to Star Wars. But other things, editing-wise and directing-wise, I think you didn't do on purpose, but it's such an influence on you
and
that
also,
you don't realize
the
it.
music is, you can tell, inspired by John Williams, which is interesting because when we first started doing Marlin the Show, we used Napoleon Dynamite soundtrack music. Then, Warner Music had to take the videos down because it used their soundtrack. So
that's when YouTube started cracking down on their music.
So Lane he made his own Marlin soundtrack, which is kind of inspired by, similar to the Napoleon Dynamite stuff, right?
Definitely using like those keyboards and stuff.
So for the Marlin movie, it's a lot of the same themes, but in more orchestral, the way that John Williams does it for Star Wars.
So I want to talk about when we did this scene. Lane was playing Marlin, Kyle was playing Grandma, and so I was left to do Grandpa.
In terms of controlling the characters.
So normally Lane is Grandpa, but oftentimes, just because of the logistics of a scene, we've all pretty much played every character, and we end up playing each other's characters. So I was Grandpa in this movie, I think, for every scene, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, I kind of, just as we were recording it, we're improvising, we're coming up with lines. And so, watching it back last night, I realized that, like, all of Grandpa's dialogue and his jokes were me. And I appreciate Lane recording my jokes in his voice because they're, in my opinion, they're really funny. I do enjoy tooting my own horn a bit.
This was a scene where I think we put a green light somewhere to make the grass look a little greener.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, here we have the first scene of the Gigabuster. He's straight up, his voice is Kylo Ren. I'm just going to say that right out the bat. And I'm really happy the way his voice came out.
Yeah, he... Obviously, you know, we had the idea for him before we saw The Force Awakens, but he really is a similar character in that he seems like the lead bad guy, and he's the one going on, you know, the missions and whatnot. But
He's the muscle.
Yeah, but then there is this, I don't want to say, what's the word? You know, someone who is really in charge, who's commanding him, telling him what to do. And that's, you know, I guess coincidental.
Yeah. The Gigabuster is essentially just a gun for hire, and he's got a crew of henchmen that he uses. He was hired to basically kidnap Marlin and bring him to Scar Killigan so that he could be used as bait to get information out of his parents.
So, I forget who came up with the name for the Gigabuster.
That was me, Kyle.
Yeah.
I think Kevin and I were driving to eat lunch somewhere, and I said, how about the Gigabuster? And he just started laughing.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was Agent Zero was one of the other ones.
I think that was the first one that I came up with, and I was really attached to it. I thought Agent Zero sounded really cool. But then it turned out Agent Zero has already been used.
We Googled it, and it was used.
And a bunch of other stuff.
But then the name Scar Killigan, I came up with that. I think I was sitting in a theater about to watch a play, and the name Scar Killigan popped in my head, and I wrote it down on my phone instantly, and I was like, that is the perfect villain name. I don't know what I want to use it for, but I have to use it somehow. And then this character came up, and it was a perfect opportunity to use such a vile, ominous, scary, evil villain name. It has Scar and Kill in it, and it's Scar Killigan, and that tells you everything you need to know.
I would always say, Scar Killigan, he's back to kill again.
Yeah.
So here we have the start of this car chase. There are several kind of chunks of this movie where you get that really zany Marlin feel.
Right there, that's a blue screen. Right?
Yeah.
This shot, or that sequence, took a while to get down.
Yeah, so there's points in this movie which feel like more like the Marlin series than others in that it's zany and there's lots of comedy. This is one of them.
Yeah.
But going back to that one shot, for a lot of the car stuff where obviously in a movie you have, you know, cameras attached to cars and, you know, looking at the driver. In Halo, you can't do that. So the way we were able to do it was by having the vehicles still on a blue screen.
Quickly, see this warthog that rams into the building there? Bam, right there. I think that was a total accident, right? Because we're all, like, we have, like, two controllers. And
we were maxed out.
Yeah, so we can't, like somebody was driving two cars at once with two controllers, and you can only pay attention to one at a time. So one guy just, you know, veered off, and we weren't paying attention to it, but it was funny, so we added a scream and kept it in the movie.
Yeah. So there was, you know, lots of, for the, actually one shot coming up here, for blue screen shots, there's one right there with the close-up of Marlin. So that definitely is important to this to add, you know, some more suspense and character, add some punctuation to all these driving scenes.
Yeah, and, you know, this is one of the longest sequences in the movie, and there are actually two moments that were even cut out. We had, I guess you could say, a little reference to the Rocket baseball episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to it. So this is interesting because we have so many maps that we're going across, and we have to, like, blend them so that this one ends up working the best, I think, when they go off the cliff, and it turns out to be the cliff on the Spire map, and they're, like, the same color. Lane had to do a little daytime editing, like, that looks more like daytime in the map, I think. But it just works so well. as
I
far
love
as
this. Ow, my collar right here.
yeah.
No,
That's
ow,
lame.
ow, ow,
That was
ow.
lame. Yeah. So, and obviously we have more of these funny moments like this.
Yeah, this
to
is one of
punctuate
my
stuff.
favorite moments in the movie.
Now, who came up with this?
I think it was me again, Kyle. Now, one thing that was really important for me is that, first of all, Marlin is a comedy. The show is a comedy, so the movie has to be funny as well.
We have to put a joke in wherever we can.
Yeah, there are lots of episodes that are more action-oriented.
That line right there, damn it, he only recorded once.
Yeah,
It was perfect.
One take. Usually for the movie, Lane would have us do a lot more takes. That was just one because the first one was perfect. Call it one take.
And I
wonder.
got it on camera and it's in the documentary.
Yeah, so there are a lot of episodes that are really action oriented, so it makes sense that the movie would be that way as well. But it has to be funny first of all.
Yeah,
And
like there's a moment
think we
coming
achieved
up
that.
right here. It's another funny moment where he loses his mongoose, and then there's one right up here, and we like put a yellow light under it or an orange light so that it looks like it's glowing gold. And you have this musical like cue, so that, and then he just straight up says convenient. See, so that's just a joke. It's like he lost his mongoose, but here's another one so that we can keep it going. And then here's where we had another deleted scene that I understand why it got cut, but it was a really funny moment where one of these guys, they have a rocket launcher and they shoot at him, and Marlin turns a corner, gets off his mongoose, he has a gravity hammer, and he shoots the rocket away. And you'll see that eventually. We'll release the deleted scenes. It was a scene that needed to go for time, but it was really funny.
And that's not the only deleted sequence we had in this car chase scene. There was another one when they were up on the cliff in the very first section, the first map.
on Forge World.
On Forge World, yeah, where he like hit somebody.
Yeah, if you notice,
fell off the
he's
cliff.
on top of a cliff, and then all of a sudden they're below it on the sand.
Mm-hmm.
There was a part where he went down.
He
and
tumbled down the
Yeah,
cliff.
he tumbled down and they followed him, but it just had to get cut. And this part I want to talk about was something that I had in mind that we have this whole car chase, and then all of a sudden it just goes completely zany where they're flying through or racing through the stuff in the sky where there are falling explosions happening around them. It's just meant to be purely insane. And it ended up looking pretty much exactly how I had pictured it.
Yeah, and this wasn't I think my original idea was that it was like the construction of a theme park that was going on that he was driving through, and then we changed it to a Rube Goldberg machine.
And this was so difficult to actually drive through because we set up all these traps for ourselves and then we had to like get by them. Like there's places where you fall off and there's those kill balls coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was tough to film.
Yeah, so the guy saying it was the Rube Goldberg machine was actually one of the reshoots that we did. Just to add, I guess, a bit of somewhat reasoning as to why this thing is here. And it's also a little meta thing for Halo and Forgers.
And it's just comic relief.
Yeah. It's one of those punctuations again.
And then it's followed by this scene, which is so intense and really well edited with, going through. And then you have these other guys coming behind him and you're thinking, oh no, are they going to not be paying attention and just go through and explode the mines? And then you have these close-up shots right here getting so close.
Lane has a unique editing style that I feel like he does something that not a lot of people do, where he uses edits to make things funny. And the first time I really noticed that he could do that was when we made Jack of Cards, then also a lot of the Leon Barnes that we were doing. And then he impressed me again with that particular scene as well as the post-credits scene, that part of what makes it funny is the way it's edited.
Here coming up is another section of some trickery here. When we whip pan over to these other guys, that's a cut. So like right there, whoosh, there was a separate cut.
Because that's 5 people.
Yeah, so we couldn't have all those guys in one shot. So we did 2 shots. One of Marlin by himself and the camera whipping over to nothing.
And this is more than just 2 rounds because it's at least 3, because when the rocket shoots up and hits Schmo's house and it falls apart, that had to be done in Forge, because we can't actually have his house fall and topple in game. It has to be Forge, where we can drop all those items.
Exactly. It was, especially when the Falcon comes down and falls onto the deck and collapses it, that was tricky, because we had 2 guys who were pretty much the victims who get crushed. One person has to be ready to drop the Falcon on there. And then I think the other person was controlling the deck.
Yeah,
and
because we had to,
letting it go.
To drop the deck to make sure that, the Falcon hits the deck and then the deck falls too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, geez, that was kind of.
And I think the opening shot.
Did we add a light there behind?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think the opening shot of the scene was another reshoot that we did, where originally Cotton Swab's head wasn't following Marlin, and it looked really odd. So we had to go back in there, and after the whole scene was edited, we're like, that doesn't look right. So we went and filmed it again, where his head follows Marlin as he drives by.
That's just an example of the extra work that we put in that we wouldn't have done for an episode, is making everything look perfect. And I want to go back a second here. The line where Marlin says they're trying to be fake police officers. When we were rehearsing the scene, Lane just said that, and what he means is they're pretending to be police officers, or they're fake police officers, and he blended them. And he said that for real, and I made the joke that why would they be pretending to be fake police officers? So just as a reference to that, we just put it in the movie as another joke.
So, if you guys are familiar with some screenwriting and movies and stuff, I guess this would be classified as the point of no return, where, I don't know, Marlin's house is crushed, it isn't safe there, so even if he didn't want to find his parents, he doesn't really have a choice now. And this next scene with his grandparents, kind of just out of necessity more than anything, because logically, if he feels like his grandparents, weren't telling him the full story, they would want to go back and, I don't know, try and get some more answers out of him. But obviously, because these henchmen are here, and it seems like his grandparents are oblivious and cooperating, that wouldn't be wise.
So this scene is one that we had to do a few rounds because there's multiple characters and there's only 4 that you can have at a time. So that shot a minute ago where they're looking, you're up with, the group, and they're looking down at the house, that's a shot where, Lane, you had to mat in people down below, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there was also one shot, even though technically it wouldn't have had to be done, where the camera's down below and looking back up at the cliff. They're actually added in on the cliff at that point as well. Just because I think we only did 2 rounds of that. And if we wanted to do it without trickery, we would do 3 rounds.
So here's where we had another deleted scene where we had them meet with a secretary first, I think, right? And we filmed it, and did we even edit it? Did we record lines for it?
We edited it, we didn't record lines for it.
I remember thinking, this is a scene that, I think I was we were really tired, because we worked so hard on every scene. We're going to make this, but I feel like it's not even going to end up in the movie.
Mm-hmm. It was really unnecessary.
I don't remember anything about it.
It was unnecessary, and it ends up working. That was something I designed.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, so the scene basically, it didn't need to be there because it works well in the edit of just, Cotton Swab saying, actually, I do have someone in mind. And then Devon Pierce, he's introducing himself.
So, so that birth certificate is really funny. It's just like a little kitty, one of those certificates that you'd get for participation as like a 5-year-old or something.
Yeah, I think Lane tasked me and Kyle to come up with that. And so Kyle made it with me right next to him, and we were, coming up with names and everything. And we knew a long time ago that we wanted his dad's name to be Archangeles, but we had no idea for last names and his mom's name. And Kyle just he wrote Oprah, and then he gave them the hyphenated Daya and Rhea. And we weren't oh, this is going to be it. We'll just send it to Lane, see what he thinks. and we never ended up changing it or talking about it. It was just, great, that's great. And so I think it's absolutely hilarious that we don't know Marlin's last name for 100 episodes of the TV show, and then it turns out to be diarrhea. And I had always joked before, like, oh, Marlin's last name is Hitler Mussolini. I can't count how many times I said that. I'm sure you guys remember.
A lot.
I said it all the time. And I think I even said, can we do it here? But
and we referenced it too with Grandpa saying, I think they were Hitler.
Yeah. Ultimately, we went with diarrhea, which is hilarious. And then at the end, when he says, I'm Marlin Diarrhea, wait, that can't be right.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
That's a good, setup with him, reading off the names to Cotton Swab, and then at the end of the movie, him putting it together. Do you think people, because obviously, I forgot to say this at the forefront, but we are recording this before the movie comes out, so we don't know exactly what people are going to think of it and what they're going to get or not. Do you think that they're going to put those names together before
what's
the
interesting
reveal?
Is that when they actually get the document and you see it, I noticed last night, you can see the name Marlin Diarrhea at one point, but it's way up high on the screen where you almost can't be looking at it. So it is there to look at. It's possible that they'll put it together, but it's on the screen so quickly that unless you're paused and you're looking at it and deciphering everything, I don't know. I think some people will, some people won't. And for the people who don't, it'll be a bigger payoff at the end.
So here we have our first look at Scar Killigan, voiced by Kevin, very menacingly.
Yeah. When you have a name like Scar Killigan, you can only really have one type of voice, which is this one.
And we've watched these scenes over and over again throughout the making of it to make sure that everything looks good, and so I've heard all these lines hundreds of times before, it feels like, but when we watched the movie as a complete thing for the first time, we did it last night, I was really super impressed by Scar Killigan, and I thought that Kevin did a really awesome job throughout all the scenes, particularly the last one when he's talking to the parents and, pushing them onto the cliff saying one of them has to die.
Star Wars wipe.
Yeah, there you go. That's what
that was my Star Wars moment.
And thank you. I agree. I think the Scar Killigan performance is A1, and really it just comes down to giving a voice to the name Scar Killigan. He has to earn it. And that's where the super menacing... And what's funny is that throughout the show, I had done those menacing voices before, like Jerry, a.k.a. Satan, has a similar voice. And then the alien, Jimbo Jamboon, has another similar voice. So I had to come up with a third one that I hadn't done before that's, different from those while using the same vocal technique.
So here we have, if there's I'd say like 4 or 5 like big set piece like scenes in this movie, and here we have, I'd say, like our second or third one, which is the government building.
Maybe the most work put in, especially as far as editing goes.
And this is one that's not practical. So like we said before, the inside of the volcano is in the inside of the volcano that we made to show the outside. This is not that. And you'll see it in the documentary if you've already seen it. That aside from this little section of it where they walk into it, the rest of the inside of it is a separate forge map that we made.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about filmmaking is that when people are watching this, there's no question that the inside of the building is the same as the outside. But for us, I only know it as being separate.
Now, when we were forging this, we did it split screen, so a lot of the effects don't show up, like the lighting, as well as the water going across there.
I'd say that's the one regret is having that water there.
I have one regret too, and I'll point it out later. It's at the end.
So, yeah, if it was just Lane forging by himself, he would have noticed that, and that effect would have shown up on the full screen, and we would have known to raise it like a unit or two.
But we had already, it would be so much work to go and lift everything and then refilm the whole scene.
Yeah, not only did we film it, or did we make it, then we also filmed it before we even knew that it was going to look like that.
So it was not worth it, so sorry.
I really hope it's just not, it doesn't take people completely out of it.
Yeah. Once you've seen it enough times, then you forget about it.
So I remember when we were talking about it seemed like this middle part of the movie was always the part where we kind of weren't sure what was going to happen. And we came up with this idea of them going to the government building and just getting the certificate. But we didn't have all this falderall exactly of them sneaking in. And I know at one point we had talked about doing like a Mission Impossible style, kind of like Marlin episode.
Heist.
Yeah. And I think it was one of you guys that kind of convinced me that we should just do it for the movie.
I don't remember that.
I kind of remember when Mission Impossible 5 came out. We watched that and were all hyped up on doing a heist.
Oh, you can see that's a forged shot. And in forged shots, you can only... the character can only be one color, so Marlin had no purple there.
Yeah.
We had to lift the elevator
So,
up.
the elevator part is another thing, that we weren't planning on. I was the one, I think, who kind of advocated for that. And as I'm sure you've already seen, and we'll see later on, that was a lot of work, and logistically even just trying to figure out who has to jump where and all the effects stuff that goes into it. But
and
it is a
moving the elevator smoothly, like to get it to go up straight and stay, oriented the right way and be the right speed and everything. It was just so complicated and difficult to get it to work.
Yeah.
And then even it works really well, but there are shots where, you can see that it was difficult. Like there's a shot where the elevator comes up and then we couldn't get it to go right at the right spot, so the people leaving have to jump out instead of just walking.
Yeah, so in case people aren't completely aware, to be clear, that whole elevator, the functionality of it going up and down, was all pulled off via Forge. So all the shots...
Not all of it. Some of it was blue screen.
Yeah, but I mean, like, all the shots where, like, the elevator's moving in the elevator shaft had to be done within a round of Forge. So...
And there's no black team.
Yeah, so, as you know, the Gigabuster and all of the henchmen have this black armor, because obviously black is a bad guy color. Unfortunately, you can't make characters black in Forge mode.
Because you can only do Forge as a team color.
And I guess there's no
black
team. So, consequently, I had to go in and manually rotoscope for certain shots around
Which means
those characters.
Cut out.
Yeah, pretty much frame by frame, cut out the characters, and then pretty much desaturate it completely.
And that's why sometimes you'll see Marlin with only orange and no purple, is because in Forge he has to be a team color, and your secondary colors don't show up.
Some of that was replaced by pickup shots, and some of it was recreated in our blue screen map, which was provided by somebody else.
Yeah, so so we used blue screen a lot in this movie. Almost all of the maps we made in this movie were made by us. I think there's only about 2 exceptions. One of them is this blue screen stage that we used, which was created by Genetic Spartan. And he's done a bunch of machinima stuff, and he's really good with like compositing and visual effects. So we're glad that he made that so we could use it.
Yeah, so just real quick, that character, the archive character, he doesn't have a credit in the end credits of the film. He was played by me, Kyle, but I can't whistle. So when he's whistling, that was Kevin.
Yeah.
For the record, I can whistle as well. But,
but Kevin sounds more like me than Lane.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, so part of the blue screen that we did for the elevator was we just recreated the...
Oh, here, that's the shot I was talking about. See, they have to jump because we just couldn't get it right.
The elevator we recreated in the blue screen stage by putting that piece in there and then having, Marlin get on top of it and the people inside and whatnot, and that way we could get the right colors while the elevator was still moving by filming the background and putting that in later.
Now, you'll see a lot of this in a subsequent behind-the-scenes video where it pretty much breaks down almost all of the visual effects that were used in this. But hopefully, when you watch this movie for the first time, you pretty much didn't notice it.
Yeah, as far as like close-ups of being on top of the elevator, and you have the background moving, that was blue screen.
Or even inside the elevator, because it's
Yeah.
the same thing where you can't like lock a camera to an elevator, or in the physical world it's no big deal. You just go inside the elevator with a camera. But here it's a whole effort.
So this was another scene where I had to end up being one of Lane's characters, because Lane is controlling Marlin, and so I'm controlling the Gigabuster. And there's the scene where Marlin lets one rip, and the Gigabuster and his henchmen are blaming it on each other. And I was being the Gigabuster, and I thought that the way we did it is we were like on Lane's phone record ourselves, audio of ourselves, so that we know what to say later.
Yeah.
And so I was recording that scene of them blaming each other, and I just thought my performance was great, and I really want you to release that somewhere so that you can hear me doing
And
it.
that
Because
fart,
I thought it was really
the
funny.
fart was one that I did. I do all the fart sounds for the show.
The fart we had the timing.
Not a real fart. I just blow into the palm of my hands.
Kyle is
And-
an expert at fake
Yeah.
farts.
And real farts.
And real farts as well. So basically, we originally did it where it was the like before, and then he runs away, and then we moved it over, and it was really funny as matching his steps when he farted.
Yeah, that was just an accident that ended up working really well.
And in the iPhone recording that we did, Lane's was really funny. We tried to get him to recreate that as close as we could.
Yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't use the actual iPhone recording because there's sounds of controller moving. But I was an advocate of trying to get that to work because his performance was just so great.
So here's the elevator sequence with a lot of big special effects moments, which, hopefully again will explain why it took us so long to make this movie. Think about how, aside from like the grandparents' house and Marlin's house, all these sets were built for the movie. So we had to make all this stuff, which took a very long time. Film it, edit it,
See there's Marlin all one color.
do all the effects, and do the voiceovers and everything. And it really did take 2 years of work to make it look as good as it
Normally,
does.
it would take us. We would do all the voiceovers in one day, as far as me and Kyle.
For episodes.
Yeah, for episodes. Here we could only do pretty much one scene at a time before getting tired. And
Yeah.
having to stop.
So, yeah, I mean, there's not even time in this commentary to break down all the visual stuff in here, but yeah, a lot of work went into this, and I think you show this in the documentary that you made, Kevin. But even just organizing it in our minds, where each character goes on this elevator and
So complicated.
who jumps where and what floor they were on.
And having to make the floors look distinct, too, by adding things like traffic cones to make sure you know that this isn't the floor that you saw before.
There's an example of blue screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then this part with Lemon Man jumping down, we had a lot of discussions on how long the timing should be of him jumping down. I felt like he was falling for a really long time. It was really complicated. And then this part here, this shot is one of the most complicated, of getting everything timed right and everything, everybody moving at the right time and going into the right spot.
I'm really proud of that one.
It turned out well, but I'm just getting stressed and tired thinking about it.
Originally, I know with the elevator stuff, we only built 3 floors of that, and originally we were going to just have it be in the story that there's only 3 floors of the building. But I think someone at one point suggested that, hey, there's just more floors, and we just won't even say what number floor they're on, so that we can fudge it a bit. And you're unclear of how many floors of the building there are.
That some of it could be underground as well. So this character who does nothing and then says, "I don't feel good," was inspired by, I'll kind of keep it kind of a secret, but somebody I know once went to the emergency room and said that somebody who was in line in front of him, they asked, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" And they said, "I don't feel good." And I thought that was so funny.
Especially because the person that we know had a bleeding gash in the forehead.
Yeah, it was a very serious injury, and the person ahead of them just didn't feel good. And I thought that was funny. So that's where that
There's a
line
similar
came from.
joke on, I think, Family Guy or American Dad, but we took our real life version. Oh, this set, This set is the same set from as the bookstore from episode 100, but we dressed it up and changed a lot of things about it.
And we shot it. It was shot from pretty much like a different angle.
Yeah, the other side.
Yeah.
So there's a reference, Thomas Lane, as opposed to Lane Thomas.
I think Lane didn't even realize that initially,
in terms of
that we made the address be on Thomas Lane, which is your name. I think you didn't realize that initially.
I don't know about that.
And then
I'm hesitant.
Lance City is sometimes we call Lane Lance because somebody called him that once.
And his birthday is September 4th, which was the day that Marlin premiered.
We were getting food and you had to give your name, and somebody called out Lance, and so now we call Lane Lance sometimes. Mm-hmm. So that's where that came from. Another in joke.
Yeah, so here you can see a bunch of blue screen stuff. With a moving vehicle like that, we have to do it blue screen.
Yeah, and that was really tricky because for some shots there's like a blue kind of console screen on the Warthog when Lemon Man's driving. So that had to be put back in because when I took the blue screen out, it took that out as well.
I think it ends up looking really good though. Like that shot there with both of them in it. It looks great.
I'd have to say, out of all the blue screen stuff, this is the most questionable, in my opinion, but I'm hoping that it is good enough.
So I think if I didn't know that it was blue screen, I wouldn't even notice. So I think you're just looking at your own work, judgingly, but I think it looks great.
The elevator stuff worked the best. Okay, now we have a big scene here, and this was a map that we made a long time ago. We had,
like 5 or 6 years ago we made this map.
We've had plans to make this movie for a long time, and I guess it kind of stopped and started a couple times. And so this was a map that we made when, we knew we were going to make the movie at some point. We had this idea of them going to... Why don't you talk about it?
So... we knew that we wanted them to go to, it was going to be about Marlin finding his parents. So here we imagined, maybe they find the address, they go to it, and it explodes in front of him. And that was going to be a really funny moment. Of course,
where they walk up to the house.
They walk up to the house and it explodes. We didn't know exactly how that was going to fit in. But when we were, really into it a couple years ago, coming up with what the idea for the movie was going to be, we included this scene in this set because we had made it before. We just changed it a little bit where, Lemon Man gets stuck inside the explosion. But the map was made years ago, and I don't think we changed very much of it at all when we went back in. Maybe adding, like, the garage or some weapons or stuff.
So we wanted this scene to be as traumatizing as possible, where this character that you've known for, really 10 years now, that he dies. And not only does he die, but you see him get surrounded by explosion. And we want there to be no question that he is dead, He steps on a mine, there are explosions everywhere. You see him get covered by explosions, and then not only that, but the house keeps burning, and it's like burning bright red. There's no question that his body is burning to a crisp inside.
And the first time Lane showed us this scene edited and you saw Lemon Man standing there and then it explodes, it was kind of funny a little bit, but it was also super traumatizing. Yeah, and every time I watch it, I think it's funny and I also think it's traumatizing.
Even knowing that he's alive, still it's hard to watch just because it's so, it's very emotional.
So, yeah, when the explosion happens, when we filmed it, when it explodes, his body flies. So actually right here, boom, like the exact frame before the explosion, or when the explosion happens, that was an explosion where Lemon Man wasn't there. So when it just cuts to the explosion, he wasn't, in that shot.
I knew that. And that's fake smoke coming out of the house that Lane
also,
edited.
we had this great moment where right before Lemon Man explodes, he's talking to Marlin about how, like, no matter what, I'm always going to be your best friend.
That's always seemed kind of like evil of us to do.
Just trying to make it even more sad.
And, there's a lot of music in this movie, and there's actually very few scenes where there isn't music. And the scene leading up to this where Marlin and Lemon Man are talking doesn't have music. So hopefully that adds into the anticipation.
And just really quickly, there's a secondary explosion there.
where the garage explodes.
Yeah, after Marlin takes a step towards it. That was just a grenade. Wasn't that a grenade that we threw?
Yeah, I threw it, and then he mounted the grenade out.
Right.
That's one of the...
Yeah, that's the bar establishing shot was probably the most time-intensive effect shot that I did. I just really had a clear vision in mind of wanting it to be like, not like fake nighttime, but like seem like it's really nighttime.
Yeah, the documentary goes pretty in depth on how you got that to work.
Yeah.
So this was another scene that we added some of the fans in.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted a bar fight, and in order to do that, we needed lots of people to kill each other in the game. But most of this we did without them.
This set took a really long time to build because it had to be perfect. Every set had to be perfect.
Yeah, one idea that I had for it was to incorporate that little crashed vehicle that's on this Tempest map into the bar section of the bar.
Yeah, you notice we have actual, like, I don't know what those are called, levers that you pull to pour the beer.
With the taps.
Yes, the taps. That's the word.
And we have billiards and karaoke with a drum set.
At the
and a
bar,
mic.
you have, like, top shelf liquor.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I like to point out, I'm hoping that this goes a long way, is like, for this whole bar scene, especially when they're like at the counter, even though obviously they can't like pick up drinks and stuff, there's sound effects of drinks being set down and being poured and ice cubes going in the glasses.
Yeah, it's the same thing when Marlin grabs his birth certificate. He does the action of grabbing it, and you hear him grab it, but you don't see it.
Yeah, and
it really does go a long way.
In situations like this, especially when you can't show something, it's important to have the sound effect, and then also have the follow-up, like when they get to the bottom of the building and Marlin confirms, yes, I have the certificate. Yeah. That's just important for clarity.
And this was another scene that really emphasizes how funny we wanted the movie to be. I think the scene is hilarious, and which is kind of needed after that heavy emotional moment of Lemon Man dying. And then also, of course, we were going to put Corey in the movie, but we didn't want you to know.
We kept him out of all the advertising, the promotion.
Yeah, he was in none of the promotion. We didn't put him in the teaser or the trailer, but of course he's going to be in the movie, and he's in it in a really interesting way.
That line where he says that his drink is on the house and everyone thinks that everyone's drink is on the house is just a prime example of, making sure that it's so funny everywhere. I think, Kyle, you came up with that joke, right?
That was my joke. So also...
and the joke that Marlin doesn't know what on the house means and he thinks he has to be on the roof.
Yeah. So in every episode with Corey, his plot to destroy Marlin gets bigger and bigger and bigger, where it ends with...
More complicated.
Yeah, in the second to last episode, I believe.
My personal favorite is marrying Grandma.
Yeah,
that's a good episode.
His plot is to destroy the entire universe. So I think it's really interesting that in the movie, he's just kind of hired to kidnap Marlin with the promise of getting to kill him.
Yeah, so we referenced it earlier, where the scene where Gigabuster meets Skarkilligan, and Skarkilligan says that I have someone else that I can't hire if you don't get the job done. And then we know, so that there's someone else out there with, crazy methods, whatever the line was. And so there's someone else, but you don't know it's Corey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even here... You think that the plan is, or you don't know his plan is to make him think that he's a sympathetic character. He's just acting here like he's a bad singer, and he's acting like he's getting put down, and he's agreeing with everything Marlin says. He says, people aren't returning my calls because he knows that in his mind Cotton Swab is dead, and he's not going to be able to return his calls.
Yeah, and I just want to say a little behind the scenes thing about the dialogue in this scene. When they're at the bar. And he says, my 1,000 girlfriends broke up with me. Talk about a social media nightmare. Kyle came up with talk about a social media nightmare. Originally, my line that I wanted it to be was, my 1,000 secretly goth girlfriends broke up with me. That's right, all of them. And then we're thinking about like having to unfriend all of them and unfollow all of them. And so it just became talk about a social media nightmare. This is where we got the fans involved here, is having everyone start attacking each other.
A big old brawl.
And of course, when we
Good,
filmed
good
this,
pool table there.
yeah, when we filmed this with the fans, Corey was not a part of this, so none of them knew that he was in the scene or in the movie at all.
That was a thing because we wanted people to be involved, but we didn't want to sacrifice, surprises and their enjoyment when they watch the movie.
Yeah, so for example, the opening scene with the movie theater, they can tell it's a movie theater, but we didn't tell the fans what they're watching.
Yeah, they didn't even know that it was the opening scene of the movie. They just knew that they were exiting a movie theater and driving away.
In that scene, in the whole bar fight scene, there is a Wilhelm scream in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, this was something that I really wanted to do. Something I've said for years and years and years was, I'm in the mood for Spood. As if, I heard it once and I got it wrong. And so that's another thing, that Marlin sees himself say that in the movie, the fake movie at the beginning.
And he thinks he's going to quote it.
He thinks he's going to quote it and he gets it horribly wrong. And I knew that I wanted to do this in this scene. And then when we filmed it, we totally forgot about that. So that's another thing we had to go back and fix because I really desperately wanted this line in here. I'm in the mood for Spood.
And then here's a funny joke where he just backs up and hits someone, and then without saying anything, they just get out and switch because they know that Marlin shouldn't be driving.
Yeah, so this was a section where we weren't sure if we needed an extra scene of them bonding, but I think it was enough. And another thing is that
we were just tired and didn't want to film it.
Corey says, I heard you say something about your parents. But he never did.
No, we actually filmed that, or we fixed that, I think, at some point, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I don't think he says anything about his parents in that scene. And
no, he does.
He does?
Or not originally. So in the bar scene, in the final cut, he says, "Tell me about it. My grandparents haven't been honest about my parents."
Oh, okay.
So there is a little in.
Originally, what happened was we forgot to make Marlin say anything about his parents. And so the idea was that Corey was just being, kind of trying to sneak into his mind saying, oh, did you say something about your parents? I know you want to meet them as part of the plan to get him to scar Killigan.
I would just like to point out Lane's performance as the creepy weird guy here is excellent.
Yeah, and then we bring it up later where Corey says, I sent my weird friend to kill Cotton Swab.
Yeah, this guy's just really funky.
And this scene was fun to play for me, being as Cotton Swab being kind of angry, getting that gravelly voice, yelling. It was fun. I enjoyed doing that
something
kind of
that
thing.
normally only I do. Yeah. That gravelly voice.
Yeah, you go into like Batman mode here.
I didn't know years and years ago when we did the Rocket Baseball episode, the coach had that same sort of voice, but I was doing it in an unsafe way. It was like when you clear your throat. If you do that too long, it hurts, and that's what I was doing. I didn't know how to do it safely.
Now I've since learned how to do it.
Now
so
I
it doesn't
do,
hurt.
and it was a lot of fun to play.
So, at this point in the movie, if you didn't know that Corey is being ingenuous, you know now, because obviously you've seen this building before, and obviously there's sinister music and Corey's.
This was another map I think that we forged at the same time we did the parent house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember doing too much forging.
And years ago, we made this map.
There's not much that you have to edit to this map.
If you go back and watch every episode of Marlin the Elite, you'll notice that this map is never in the show because we were saving it for the movie. We always knew that we were going to have Marlin's parents being held in a base here. So actually, years ago, we made the section of the base, the interior, where you've got the turret facing them, and this is where they're being held captive. We made that a long time
It was in
ago.
2012, I think.
And by the way, just the last scene with the bar, that was another practical set.
Yeah, so
It took a lot of forging, but the outside and the inside were, the very same pieces.
Yeah, even though obviously outside footage had to be heavily manipulated to make it nighttime.
Here is where we reveal the plan that Corey is the extra guy that he could hire if the Gigabuster didn't work out, with the promise of getting to kill Marlin.
This is a very exposition-heavy scene.
Yeah.
Which are tough to do.
Yeah, this is kind of where everything is revealed a bit in terms of like everyone's motivation and kind of what's going on.
And why his parents have been missing, at least why they're not immediately available to find, is because Scar Killigan has them captive because he wants information from them. You get the sense that they're really smart, which is another joke that we wanted to do, is that Marlin is presented as, kind of a not so bright character, yet he has genius parents.
Mm-hmm.
This is another joke there.
This is one of the moments in the movie where I don't know, we have a little bit of a lull. Is there anything that we want to add in here?
Let's talk about Lane's music.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he first showed us the themes that he was thinking of for the parents and the villain theme,
Which are excellent.
Yeah, before he put them in the movie, and he showed us the villain theme. I loved it so much. And then, like a couple of weeks later, Kevin and I were hiking in Oregon, and it was stuck in my head the whole time. I don't think I ever told you that before.
I think you mentioned it in the past.
Okay.
But there are distinct themes in this movie. There's like, obviously in terms of like Marlin's theme, we have like a theme for the movie itself, a villain theme, a parent theme, and then in addition to those, we have some smaller musical segments that reoccur, which would be called, I guess, motifs. So the Gigabuster has one, kind of the birth certificate sneaking. That's another one. And then, in addition to that, there's also kind of pieces that reoccur in different forms and different contexts. Like,
There are old themes from the show that show up too.
oh yeah, definitely.
You want to get the sense that this is the same universe and it's the same music.
And the end credits is the same as the end credits of the show, but he rewrote it entirely, and all the music is brand new. He wrote it all just for the movie, right?
Yeah,
The end credit,
exactly.
though, was the first one you did like months before you started doing the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
And My Gemini, the karaoke song, is one that I wrote all the music to it.
We both wrote the
Yeah.
lyrics for it.
And Kevin helped me out with the drums during the sort of piano section.
Yeah, so that's actually a full song.
Yeah.
We recorded, obviously, Corey's karaoke version, and then also we actually recorded a
Like a real-
legit
yeah.
taking it seriously version with
Which
me
the
singing.
version that Corey would be covering. Okay, I want to talk about his parents here for a moment. We always had the idea, I don't know why or when we came up with it, but I always knew I wanted, at least for me, his father's name is Archangeles, and he is that armor that he has. It's white and yellow. I don't know why I just straight up pictured him like that. And I think we even purposefully tried not to use it in the show so that we could put it in the movie as that's his dad.
I think a while ago, I don't even think it was an episode. I think it might have just been like a Facebook post or something. But I think Marlon had a Halloween costume and he used that helmet.
Interesting. And then if you look at their colors, it's like white. He's white and yellow, and she's red and blue, which, if you think about it, could end up being orange and purple.
Yeah. As much as Halo Reach, unfortunately, Halo Reach's their colors are really not vibrant. So
Especially on Elites, yeah.
So for this whole movie, the saturation is boosted way up to get those vivid colors. Yeah, so here, this is like, we're getting into like I guess it'd be the big pit in terms of like story, progression, and scripts. This is where you think everything is like doom and gloom, or at least coming up where Gigabuster has Marlin at gunpoint.
The goal is to really make you think that Marlin is about to die, even if like he can't die. The whole show and the movie is about him. We really want you to think he is in extreme mortal danger, and I think we pulled it off.
So, I'm not a sports person. Kyle, does this Tim Tebow joke still stand up?
Yeah, Tim Tebow was a quarterback for the Denver Broncos who had an incredible season. He was put in, like, I forget who their starter was, got injured or something. They put Tim Tebow in, and he was incredible. And then he was, like, super Christian, and people didn't like that for some reason. And so he was just kind of almost blackballed from the league. Like, the Broncos didn't want him. Nobody else wanted him, and he didn't really play anymore. And he tried a baseball career after that. But, a comeback isn't really possible for Tim Tebow into NFL, and a comeback isn't possible for Corey Von Sexy.
Thank you for that insight.
You're welcome.
It's a joke that we were, I guess, kind of worried about. But would it still hold up?
Yeah, because at the point of when we did the scene, I think it was 2015, or maybe
15 or 16.
15 or 16. So for us, it's kind of a long lag time between when we film something and when we put it out. So obviously, in this turbulent time, so much changes. I was kind of concerned. What if he does come back?
No, he's not coming back.
The plan wasn't for it to take so long to come out anyway. I mean, most of what took so long was the editing. I'm not saying you're slow, Lane. I'm just saying that along the way of making it, it got grander and grander, and we wanted to, take care of everything, make sure that it was made like a real movie. So we, spent extra time on mixing and all the stuff that takes a long time but is worth it when it comes out.
So just like Corey Von Sexy, here's the return of Lemon Man, and we didn't want to show any of this after he died. Any scene with Lemon Man after he died, we didn't want to put that in any of the trailers so that you couldn't say, oh, he's dead. Oh, but I saw him in another scene in the trailer.
That was a tough shot to do, to get the ghost to explode right as they're passing it. We had to get it down to its bare bones and make sure that it was going to explode at the right time.
Yeah. So this is the start of the kind of the big climax of the movie. This is like a 20-minute, I'd say, action scene.
And this was the final scene that we did with the fans, at least chronologically in the movie. I don't remember how we did it exactly. But a lot of the henchmen, who are all dressed the same in black, were the fans, as well as some of the SWAB team. And just the henchmen versus SWAB team is a lot of fans, as well as when we have a bunch of people chasing Marlin up that little hill.
Yeah.
A lot of it we did on our own, too, like the chain gun sequence. That was all on our own without the fans.
Yeah, so here, as we were talking about earlier, when we have things mirrored from the fake movie at the beginning to here, that's kind of starting to come to a head. Where, as Kyle, I think you pointed out, we have the two people that Marlin is going to rescue, and here he delivers the "I'm Marlin the Elite" line, which is obviously kind of echoing the fake movie at the beginning, and then he even stabs the guy and has a chain gun. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that all mirrors back to.
And this also explains right there, the sword pops out from that guy. That explains where he gets the sword at the end.
Although I gotta admit, that was kind of
unintentional.
Accident.
Yeah.
If you think that this movie is made really, really well, A, thank you, but B, it's not just by chance or because we worked on it so hard. Lane and I actually went to film school, I'll say. Not film school, but we were film majors. And
I was a minor, so I took classes as well.
While we were making this movie, we were taking a bunch of classes on, screenwriting and, coloring and all this stuff that really tells you how to put a film together and make it well. So we had a lot of experience and knowledge of how to make a movie right, which is why partially this feels like a real production, is because we treated it like one, because we know how.
I know when we put out the theatrical trailer, someone had made a comment. I think it was like on Reddit, how it felt like a real movie trailer,
Yeah.
and yeah. So I'm glad that translated, and I hope for people watching it translates in the movie as well.
It's one of my favorite Corey moments. He kills that guy and does that little laugh. I don't know if I can even send you. The take was perfect. No need to try again.
I love this line.
Kind of like the
Great
cheap,
performance.
like the cheap James Bond kind of one-liners. We had that one, and then as well at the end when
I think timing that was really hard too. Getting it to
Yeah.
explode right behind them.
the one at the end when the Gigabuster dies, and he's Cotton Swab says, "That's what you guys were trying to tank us down."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's something. Will you let Kyle say what that line was supposed to be?
Yeah, I wanted to say something else, but Lane shot it down. We can call Marlin a dumbass twice in the movie, but you wouldn't let me say that line.
I can't even remember what it was.
It was karma is a giga bee.
Okay, yeah. We do have thresholds for Marlin the series. If that was going to be in, I would bleep it.
There are things where, Kyle and I kind of try and push the envelope a little bit. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like in episode 97 or 8, whichever one is the battle with the aliens, there's a joke where one of the aliens says, he makes a joke, or what sounds like a joke, and then he goes, "What's a joke, dick?" And Lane is like, I don't know about that, but, if it makes them laugh.
So that shot there, it's 5 people, so you know that those are some of the fans that we used.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we kind of missed the part where Marlin just kind of obliterated a bunch of banshees. Yeah. That was supposed to be... I think that's the big reveal where Marlin starts to, kind of be a badass.
Yeah, and that was something that I had in mind of he takes down all these banshees, and then there's a second of, I got them all. And then there's one more that pops up really quickly, and he gets it really fast. And I wanted to do that, and when Lane edited the scene, he didn't have it that way. And I said, Lane, it will be very funny if you do that, and you can just... we don't have to go back and refilm it. You can
recut it.
Yeah, recut it, take the shots that we have and make it work. And he did, and I'm so glad he did because it worked really well.
And the way that we did this was we used, I guess, like base player traits or leader traits within Halo Reach to make Marlin super fast, make him
one
able
shot
to,
kill, I think.
Yeah. Like, we done it before, make players jump really high in, like, the Olympics one that we did.
Mm-hmm.
So this was just super speed for Marlin, as well as making him, I think it was invincible versus the people that he was killing with the chain gun, making them like die.
No shields,
they have no health
low
at all.
health.
Yeah.
And stuff.
So this was also another scene where it feels like Cotton Swab and Lemon Man are totally doomed, and you think they're not going to make it, but here Marlin comes to their rescue, just like they came to Marlin's rescue earlier when he was about to die.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I'm trying to think of anything else I can put in right here. Obviously, coming up, we'll have like a reveal because Marlin still thinks that Lemon Man's dead. He only knows that Cotton Swab is alive. So like, here's the reveal when he realizes, oh, he's alive again, and that kind of spurs him on to do his next round of wiping these guys out.
Yeah, so you think that, or we want you to think that Lemon Man and Cotton Swab are doomed, and that there's no way they can get out of it. And then you have Marlin come in and save them, and you're happy because you know, okay, everything's going to turn out okay. Super Marlin is here.
So this was, I think, the last thing that we filmed in principal photography. We went, we make a movie every summer.
The last thing too.
Right, but one of the very last things we did, we make a movie every summer at a beach house, and for that particular summer we decided to do Marlin. And I think that
we brought the Xbox.
We didn't have much left to film, but the whole battle scene we did. And the first time we did a game, we didn't keep any of it because something about the time wasn't set up with the Xbox, and we weren't able to go back in theater and find that recording, so we had to redo it.
Yeah, I think
I
somehow
don't remember that.
the time and date got changed on the 360 so that I think it was like got set to like I want to say the 80s or
Yeah.
something like that so that I guess the game wouldn't allow you to go, obviously in the past before the game came out. Some situation like that where we couldn't view the films. So we actually had to
We had
refilm
to
a lot of
we had
this.
to reset the date and time. It was just one game, but it was like a 45-minute game that we did of a lot of the stuff with the Falcon.
But
I think the shooting the rocket through, I think is one of the things that got deleted.
But I guess the good thing about that is when we came back and filmed it a second time, it was much quicker and
Because we knew already where to go and how
Yeah.
to do everything. I don't remember that though.
It's
That's
strange.
interesting.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, that was a scary moment.
Here's some fan stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
A lot of the battle
Swab
stuff.
versus Henchman.
Again, a big thank you to everyone who came out and helped us.
And if you're wondering where Scar Killigan went, here he is, hiding, and then he sees the parents and puts together quickly a new plan. Because he's angry that he's not getting what he wants. And we have this great moment where they find a hiding spot, and look how dangerous it is. It's the only safe spot, but really it's not that safe.
I think originally I had advocated for having the big showdown on that bridge, but I think one of you convinced me to have it be instead moved to the platform.
You're talking
overlooking
Corey versus
that view.
Marlin,
Yeah.
the sword fight, yeah. Which led to some great cinematography, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
You
So
can point out one of the most beautiful shots in the movie. This took a while to get right,
Yeah.
that shot.
yeah, him
And then
he
the
was
shot,
able to slide uphill.
yeah, the shot a minute ago where it's a couple guys who all do the hey 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 hey.
Yeah.
We wanted to we thought it'd be funny to have like the same voice for all of them, and I think we tried like the same vocal take over and over, and that didn't sound good. And then doing
Okay.
like slightly different
Here's
ones.
Tom Sauce.
Tom Sauce. Here's a little quick story about Tom Sauce. I forget exactly when, but I came up with the name Tom Sauce. Like, it's a funny name. I want to put it in somehow. How do we do it? How do we add a new character to the movie? We thought, okay, we'll put him in the battle. We'll have Agent Tom Sauce be introduced, and then immediately
It's one of my
die.
favorite shots there. And we see the guy that killed Tom Sauce, and then he's like, oh, and he dies.
Yeah, so that's just a funny gag where, super you think dangerous.
It's almost like disappointing.
Guy.
Like, it's disappointing if you think like, oh man, this guy that we haven't seen the whole movie is now going to come out and win the battle. Like, that's not fun. But then he dies immediately.
Yeah, he is shot while getting into his tank.
So this is where I was really impressed by Scar Killigan, the voice acting in this little sequence.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I have to say it's fun to be this intimidating and get to you. It's not often that you get to do stuff like this.
Actors always say that playing bad guys is the most fun, and I agree because Corey Von Sex is the most fun character that I've ever played on Marlin.
Think about it. There are more good guys than bad guys in any form of media. So it's rare to get to be the bad guy, and when you get a good one like this and get to do a fun performance, it's a total blast. So I'm glad that you think it turned out well, because I do too.
So here, something I noticed was when Marlin jumps down, he says, "Here goes nothing," which is also what Lemon Man says at the top of the elevator shaft right before he jumps down.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, they both say, "Here goes nothing."
As Marlin is running around and zooming, we put in like race car sounds. Obviously, that's really hilarious, especially right here. This is the most notable part.
This moment right here when Marlin says, how did you survive? And Lemon Man says, there's not enough time for that right now. I'm kind of afraid that everyone is going to think, oh, that's a cop-out. We're not going to know what happens. But then, of course, we do explain it because this is... We put a lot of work into it, and we wanted this to have no plot holes. So there's stuff that we even find later on in editing that we have to go back and fill in. Like you were talking about.
That last shot was
mentioning the
one that we did a
parents.
bunch of takes of with the fans, and we ended up with a pretty good one. But it
That-
took a lot of tries.
That one shot of him going up is one that I had in mind that I wanted to do,
He wanted it to be one take.
and it took a really long time to get the camera movement to an acceptable,
Yeah.
Lane
actually found out very, very late in production of the movie that, like, in one of the last couple rounds of capturing, that you can actually adjust the camera speeds and
separate from the controller sensitivity.
This was a bit of a twist that the big bad guy, Scar Caligan, is actually killed by another bad guy, Corey. He kills him because he's angry that he didn't fulfill his promise to let him kill Marlin. I think the Gigabuster is really hilarious in this tank sequence. He feels like a final boss. He's got that final boss laugh.
Yeah.
And his voice goes wonky.
Yeah, great shots of being able to see his face from outside the tank in a close up.
Yeah. That's, I think, where we had the tank kind of just mostly standing still, just moving ever so slightly, like right there, so that the camera could be on him.
Now, this is a moment that I had a lot of trouble with as far as the editing went. I feel like initially, and I said that before with Lemon Man falling down the elevator, that he was falling for a really, really long time, or like he was going over the cliff. It was like, in Mission Impossible 2, where they show everything 100 times. It was kind of like that. He went over the cliff a bunch of times, and I was able to convince Lane to cut it down, and it looks a lot better now. Thank you, Lane.
Mm-hmm. So really here, I'll just bring to light, you kind of see it right there, not the best example, but there's some rack focus effects and some depth of field.
For those of you that don't know
Stuff.
what that means, rack focus is when something is in focus in a shot, and then it changes to something else, and the distance between them. So like something in focus in the background, and then the focus changes to what's in the foreground, or vice versa.
Yeah, meant to draw your focus to a particular part of the frame.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few shots throughout this movie. Unfortunately, obviously you can't do every shot. That would be too time consuming.
And
But
when
for
you're
pivotal shots, I went the extra mile.
And when you're in theater mode filming this stuff, everything is in focus pretty much, right? So
Yeah.
all the blurring things out is all done in post.
I think they all turned out great.
Yeah.
So here we have the big showdown final duel. I'll say this is a very Star Wars-y music.
And
It's
it's
on
almost like a
purpose.
lightsaber battle.
Mm-hmm.
One of the places where you can really see the influence of Star Wars, which was really a big part of us growing up. A lot of our older movies that you can't find online anywhere because the internet, YouTube didn't exist, where we used to make little Star Wars movies.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are all very embarrassing. They'll never be seen again.
I think the cinematography in this scene is so great, and my favorite shot in the whole movie is at the end of this scene.
Mm-hmm. So, one thing that's subtle, I'm not sure if you picked up on, when Marlin says, "Yeah,
There's a
good
rack
luck."
Focus.
Yeah, that's an important one. Marlin says, "Yeah, good luck." All the sound and music just drops out to add some impact, like right here.
Sometimes having no music is more emotional than having music.
More powerful.
Yeah, more powerful. Now, I want to talk about something here. When Corey falls down and you see him screaming, or you hear him screaming, we did something that was interesting where when we recorded it, when we had Kyle do the scream, he screams while he's falling down, and then when it cuts away to Marlin, he takes a breath in and goes, and then it cuts back to him and he screams again. And we thought that was funny, but then we tried it where we took out the breath in and just cutting back to him and he's screaming again is even funnier. That is my favorite shot. Marlin by himself on the ledge.
And you did multiple takes of those screams, and I think for the second scream, that's actually a few that are stitched together.
Yeah, I have. I like what I like to say. I have an award-winning scream, and it is the unsafe kind, the kind that hurts if you do it too much. So I'm not able to do it very long. We only have a few takes before it doesn't even sound good anymore. But that was one that I was really looking forward to doing because Corey always screams every time he's offed in every episode.
So this was, Lane said he had one regret, which was the water that you can see in the government building. This is my one regret, is when you have Lemon Man explaining what happened here, and he says, Cotton Swab came and rescued me. Even when we were filming it, I wanted to have a shot of Cotton Swab's face popping up right there. You should be able to see his head pop in.
Look down the shaft?
Yeah, we're just so tired of filming that we're like, not one more round for one shot. It's just not worth it. But I do wish that we had done that. But don't need it. Now, here's something else I wanted to talk about. Think about this. When Marlin's parents come in here, that is 5 characters in one scene, where we can only have 4. So we had to do multiple rounds and some shot trickery. And it's more difficult than you would think to put 5 characters in a scene with 2 rounds and try to make everything, like, look, there, 5 characters in one shot. How did you do that?
So that was another Matt.
Who did you mat in?
So I think it was, for that situation, it was either Lemon Man and Cotton Swab. Even though we only needed to put one extra person in, since they were standing so close, it was just easier to do both of them. So here we have something that I really wanted to do, and I thought it'd be a great callback to the very first episodes that we ever did. And that's going back to using Halo 2.
And this time
And it made sense story-wise as well, because we're using the old map that Marlin
And this
lived
time
on.
we can do it without having the screen be just a little tiny slit.
Right, this was the end of principal photography, where we actually, this was the only thing that we filmed where we weren't in the same room. Kevin and I were at our house, and Lane was at his place so that he could have the full screen to film with.
Because in Halo 2, you can't go back into a theater mode and capture it, so Lane had to be capturing it while we were filming, and he was the camera, and we were the actors.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to do more takes of everything, because Lane had to get the camera movements right. So what you're seeing here is Lane like zooming in or not zooming in or walking and all this stuff of he is the camera.
Yeah, this is all stuff that had to be done before Halo 3, and I'll just say I'm glad theater mode exists now.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope people appreciate this nice like throwback.
We always knew we wanted to put this in the movie, and then when they came out with the new headlong map, that was another one that we had to save for the movie because we knew we wanted to use it. And there's the parkour episode, or where Marlin thinks he becomes a superhero and he does parkour off a ledge. We used that headlong map, but we just covered it up so you couldn't tell.
So you want to talk about this camera work here, Lane?
Yeah, so since there's no theater mode, we wanted this nice sweeping shot to end this flashback. So for here, we had to resort to having me, the camera person, in-game standing on a Banshee that was controlled by someone else.
That was me, Kyle.
And it took forever because the option to press X to, hijack the Banshee kept popping up on your screen.
Yeah.
And it would show.
And we would try flying away like that or flying towards and then reversing the shot. I don't know which one you ended up using.
So we ended up using a shot where we were flying towards Marlin, but then I reversed it so that we go away from him.
Yeah, it took a lot of work to get that to work.
And that's the big explanation of why we haven't seen the parents for the whole entire show, what they were doing the whole time. Why they're important to Skarkilligan.
Why they had to give Marlin away to the grandparents. Why they couldn't be a part of his life. Because they're their work is too dangerous, and they didn't want something like this to end up happening.
Coincidentally, I think since we were using the Master Chief Collection for the Halo 2 bits, I think the Halo 2 stuff looks sharper and more crisp than the Reach stuff.
I noticed that too. It looks really good.
This is where I think we just got lucky here with the movement of the two shots fading, dissolving together. Just
So
happened to work really well.
Here's a
together.
theme that's in the Marlin show a lot.
So that's actually, so we have the keyboard going, and that's obviously the kind of like the very first like Marlin theme that we have. But then on top of that, layered on is also the parent theme.
Good word.
So it's two themes in one,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of that within the music of it.
A second ago there, Marlon was saying ding dong, ding dong. That was something that we used to do all the time, and then kind of, just stop putting it in the show. But it's very classic Marlon. We wanted to bring it back here.
There was a nice subversion also earlier on when Corey says it first.
Yeah, I noticed that. And also, unfortunately, this map is all destroyed in Halo Reach. There's nothing we can do really to fix that, so we tried covering it up in Forge a little bit. Some of the, there's a fire pit, I think, that we covered up, and then we just explained that this place hasn't been inhabited for a long time, so it kind of looks like this. They need to fix it up.
And what a great way to end the movie by having Lemon Man show up with the dinner with Marlon's parents as the flip of Marlon showing up with the dinner with Lemon Man's parents. And then the promise of getting them all together, which was like the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Great way to bring everything full circle.
And also, we wanted to have, obviously it kind of ends on a funny note, but it's also wanted to be sincere. So we have the dad dance payoff at the end. I forget who originally came up with that.
I forget too.
I think it was you. But anyway, I was talking to Lane.
Yeah.
We also filmed an alternate ending. I don't know if you remember. It went nowhere. It was somebody, I think, Lemon Man, or no, it was the dad killed Lemon Man at the end. Just to
that wasn't really an alternate option. That was just
to set up a horrible sequel or something.
I don't remember that.
So at the end of every episode, we have the credits and then something at the very end.
Yeah, if you've never stayed for the end of a Marlin episode, after the credits of every single episode is a little something.
Sometimes, very rarely, it's a scene, but usually it's just like an outtake of us killing each other.
Something that happened during...
Something funny that happened during filming. And for the longest time, we had no idea what we were going to do for the movie. And only literally 8 days ago, from today, we filmed the end of we filmed the post-credit scene.
Yeah, we had like all this work on the movie done for years, and then we needed something to put at the end. So, Avengers style. Remember when the Avengers came out? Like they filmed a few days before the movie came out. They filmed that last scene of them eating. That's kind of what this was. Is just weeks before the movie is finished, we go back in and film a couple more things. We were thinking, like, what do we wanted to do? How do we do an extra scene? And one of my suggestions was, how about you get to see Tom Sauce in action before he dies? And then Kyle was like, how about more of the real movie?
The fake movie.
The fake movie. And I was like, that's a great idea, but what if instead it's behind the scenes and you see the actor screwing up? And, the actor... the actor that's playing Marlin, we ended up using, the pretend guy that, if you remember our announcement video, when we announced the movie, there was a guy that they brought in and said, this guy's going to play Marlin now because they ain't got too expensive. And it was me doing this fake British accent. And we're like, that'd be fun if we actually pretend that they cast that guy in the movie. And so he has two voice actors here. When Lane... is saying the lines from the movie, I feel the need for, and then you cut to me going, line.
Mm-hmm.
So, it works well. And God, we came up with something really funny for the end, and we had to we had to make a new set and make it look like a movie set.
You make it look like a sound stage.
Yeah.
We had a camera track and a dolly set up with the camera on top and like a 3/4 set on a soundstage and
With no ceiling.
the lights and everything. Yeah,
And the character is supposed to be Corey Von Sexy, and Kyle always wanted to give Corey Von Sexy a blue.
Yeah. When we moved to
visor.
Reach, I said, let's give him the blue visor. And they were like, no. And I said, and then, they changed Lemon Man's visor to the gold for the movie. I was like, let's do it, for the movie. We'll make his visor blue. No. So the fake Corey character in the fake movie. Okay, finally they relinquished and let me do it.
Mm-hmm. I was just worried that it was a little too much of a visual difference where I was worried it might be a little confusing.
Like, is it really Corey?
Yeah.
So here.
So he's Beauregard.
Oh, and Beauregard. That was something else that we came up with really late. Like, oh, Beauregard. That's a really funny name, but it's too late to put it in the movie. And then it turns out it's not. So we put it in at the end.
Mm-hmm. So going back full circle with the new TP logo, that's kind of what I had in mind in terms of like the layout when I made the original logo. It's just that now I was able to kind of, I don't know, do it much more better, more smoothly.
All right.
So that concludes the movie. I really hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you enjoyed listening to the commentary. I'm really pleased we didn't have nearly as much dead time as I thought that we were going to have.
There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we probably could theoretically do another commentary and be talking just as much.
Yeah, I think if you've seen the documentary, that'll give you a lot of behind-the-scenes knowledge on making the movie. And then we have more stuff coming out, too.
Deleted scenes, some voice outtakes, forging stuff showing you, some of the sets and how they were forged and all that stuff. So if you want to check out all that out, you can go to youtube.com/Thomas Productions. The best way to make sure you get all those videos and, are notified when new ones are posted is to subscribe. And also you can click that notification button as well if you want to get pestered. Usually I don't, but you can do that if you want to. So, as usual, you can keep up with us on Facebook. That's usually the best place, the one that's updated the most, facebook.com/Thomas Productions. We're also on Twitter, twitter.com/ThomasProInc. We also have a website, thomasproductionsinc.com. That's a good hub if you want to find like all the places where we're at, our SoundCloud, behind the scenes photos and stuff.
It has the original Marlin episodes that were deleted from YouTube.
Yeah, you can go there and find links to all of those, and
with the original Napoleon Dynamite music.
Watch them at your own discretion, just because I don't know. We've evolved a lot.
Yeah, they were made. They were made 10 years ago, so
when we were teenagers.
I would have been 14 when the first episode was made.
We didn't know how to. I mean, how to make everything.
It was our first
professionals.
Yeah, and it was our first machinima as well.
We're learning.
So obviously, you can watch it and see a nice progression.
I do want to say, I think that the Marlin the Elite, the movie, is my favorite Marlin video we've ever done. I love so many episodes. I can't pick a favorite, but the movie, I think, is the best we've ever done.
Well, I'm really happy that you think that, Kyle. And to everyone listening and watching, I hope you think that as well. So, to wrap it up, I'm Lane.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Kevin.
And thank you very much for watching and listening.